Hello, my name's Gary Baker. I'm CEO of IAIA, and I'm here today to talk about a new report that IAIA is releasing called Improved Decision Making for the Energy Transition, Guidance for Using Strategic Environmental Assessment. Now, this guidance comes at a critical juncture for us all. Indeed, not to get too grandiose, but for the whole planet, in terms of how we support strong and accurate decision-making when facing a tidal wave of new renewable energy projects. And why are we facing this tidal wave? Well, it's because the threat of climate change is forcing us to speed this transition from fossil fuels into renewable energy. The good news is that is indeed happening. The bad news is that some of the decisions that have been taken now, we will see the ramifications of later. And that's because in many, many jurisdictions, there's insufficient structure, procedure to be making confident, long-term, sustainable decisions. And that really is why we felt the need for a global guidance on the use of strategic environmental assessment, specific related to renewable energy projects. So to discuss that, I'm delighted to be joined by the co-authors of this new work, Barry Delisle-Clayton and Miles Scott-Brown. Both of them are very seasoned SEA experts who've covered many projects around the world, but really have also spent the last couple of years helping to collect and refine as much expertise as we could find in terms of producing this document. So welcome to you both. Thank you for joining me today. I'm just going to ask a couple of questions to try and get a flavor of what the document is, and then maybe a few other items that we may get into a little bit later. So if we start with some basics, perhaps, clearly SEAs have been around for many, many years. It's quite embedded in the systems in many countries. But perhaps for an audience that is less familiar, then what is a strategic environmental assessment? And also related to that, why do we feel a need for this sort of guidance now? Maybe one for Miles to start with.
Yes, strategic environmental assessment, now known perhaps more commonly as strategic environmental and social assessment, as you said, has been around for a long time. It is a high-level strategic look at policies, programs, and plans of government. And in this case, it was relating to energy transition. So the move away from using coal and fossil fuels as a primary fuel source towards renewable energy. And what we say in the guidance is this is widespread. It's in place in over 100 countries. And what we've found in our practice, and of course during completion of this work, one of the challenges is there's lots of guidance out there, but not specific to the energy transition. And many of these guidelines, although in place, are not in practice. So that was, I think, one of the first things that we came to conclude is the lack of practice to put SEA into place.
If we step back and look at, you mentioned that SEAs are in place in certain jurisdictions, but more broadly across the whole globe, I mean, how would you characterize the uptake of SEAs from, both Western world, global north, global south? Barry, one for you.
Well, I think we can go back to 1969 when in the USA they introduced the NEPA, the National Environmental and Policy Act, and that really paved the way